Good morning, everybody. John Sviokla here with Adam Rappaport and Ankash Handa. And we are here with GAI Insights, rating your news essential, important, or optional, putting thoughts in your head and time in your day. Please do subscribe if you find this useful. Hit the subscribe button. And we also have all the articles available at gaiinsights.com/articles. So feel free to follow along as we go. So Ankash, if you could start us off, please.
Sure, John. So the first one that we have for today comes from OpenAI and talks about their new tools for building agents.
Yeah, boy, whole big new announcement by OpenAI, including a software development kit and so forth here. What do you think, Adam?
I was important when I read it earlier today and was preparing, and more as I thought about it more and as I started to read what some other people on X have been commenting about it, I'm going to say it's essential news.
Mm-hmm.
OpenAI is a leader, and for them to come out with so many components to an agentic framework, it's really building on a lot of things they already have. There's very little that's new here in terms of developments, other than really organizationally and logically how they're laying out the groundwork. So the big piece of news is that third bullet there, the agents SDK. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but they have more observability tools, so you can watch the workflow execute and know, like debug, which is a very important thing for development. You also get web search, file search, and computer use built into this thing through an API, so you can developers can start executing all of those as part of their workflows for agentic systems. It's open in terms of being able to call the API of any LLM on the back end. And then you have the responses API, which is sort of how they sew it together. And just like when you'd send a text message and you get a chat completion, now you effectively have a similar sort of channel with the responses completions. So there's a lot going on here within the Agents SDK. What I think really makes this a big deal is that it's actually fairly basic. Like they didn't try and overcook it, overcomplicate it. There's a total of only 5 things basically in the SDK. One of them is models, right? Like O1 or O3 Mini. One of them is the tools, which is where you call functions or where you interact with other agents. There's the knowledge and memory, the guardrails, which is nice because it can not only like prevent foul language or other things like that, but that's actually where the fact checking goes on as well, and you can mitigate hallucinations. And then there's the orchestration, which is where you develop, deploy, and improve the agents. So they've really thought a lot, obviously, as you would expect from them, about the system. Yeah, I think we're, I'm happy to call this essential and ensure that everyone knows about it.
Yeah, I'm totally down for essential. The the thing that I think to keep in mind too is just how dominant ChatGPT still is for retail users. You know what I mean? And I think it's still got over 80% market share, compared to Perplexity and all the other models. So this is clearly the market leader. So essential it is. Great new news from our friends at OpenAI. Akash, next, please.
Okay, the next one that we have for today comes from LangChain and talks about how C.H. Robinson is transforming the logistics industry with LangChain.
Yeah, I found this one. I was in between optional and important on this because it's a decent, I think it's a decent case study of how they've used LangChain to, change the nature of, how they support their supply chain. And, I read it last time. I'm trying to remember. I think there's some there we go. There's they've got clear savings. It's a short article. They've got clear savings here of over 600 hours a day. This is an area that actually I've done some research in over the years in terms of managing the order cycle and going across the supply chain, and it's a big deal for a lot of organizations. And so they lay out pretty good case study here. It's not a very robust case study. It's got good information in it. So I was on the fence. I love case studies with proven ROI. Clearly a need here. Tens of thousands of emails they're dealing with every day, and really getting on top of that for the sake of their clients in terms of response time. So I don't know. Adam, help me out here. I'm on the fence.
I was leaning towards optional because it was light on the use case. There isn't much that an AI leader could take away or learn in terms of how they could do this themselves. It's like, oh, okay, great. Someone had really good ROI. I guess I have to use LangChain. Like, it sort of left me just needing LangChain, which falls a little short in my book in terms of a use case that we want to gather.
Okay.
Also, I don't know C.H. Robinson or how big a player they are specifically, but I mean, if it was a major logo, maybe then you hang a little more validity on the ROI. But it seemed more like LangChain trying to demonstrate that people are really using their stuff and getting results.
All right, optional it is. All right, next on Coach.
Okay, the next one comes from semi-analysis, and they talk about how America is missing the new labor economy, that is robotics.
Yeah, and this is just part one. Once again, our friends here at Semi-Analysis, man, when these folks go, they go deep. I love this source. I mean, they go all the way down to the metal, in terms of what what's available. What do you think here, Adam?
Yeah, they go deep, they go hard, they thoroughly cover it, and I feel it's tangential to generative AI. I think it's an important topic even for our AI leaders to understand what's coming. But I'm not sure I would call it essential. I think it's essential in the broader scheme of the future we're very, very quickly living into.
Yeah.
But maybe it's like it's more essential for a CEO than a CAIO, or maybe but maybe it's essential for everyone to really understand this. But it is deep also, and to say you have to read it now versus this weekend maybe isn't quite the case for essential, but a very important read at that, and very well done.
Yeah. Let me make the case for essential, and I understand it's long and complicated, but what I loved about it is that it's the only comprehensive thing I've read that talks about the relationship among robotics, production, and intelligence, and the fact that and then its implications in terms of uh, national strategy and corporate strategy in terms of how long it takes to build the capability to do these different things, and goes into everything from servo motors to essential materials to refining capacity. I mean, this is let me put it this way. I'm not being succinct. If you imagine robotics and intelligence together as an economic cluster, and all the inputs to that and its implications, the time lags and availability today, this lays it out beautifully. And I think the robotics / intelligence cluster is going to be the dominant industrial cluster in the world. And they're making the case that China is way ahead. And I think every business leader and even AI leader should understand that. I mean, it's as big or bigger than the ability to build a nuclear bomb.
Can they understand it this weekend, or do they have to understand it today?
See, I always think of important as still optional reading.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I actually pulled one quote out of it as you were talking, and you've probably won me over here. That says, and this is really the point about how it ties into Gen AI. It says, fusing mechanical capability with a software intelligence brings the world closer and closer to fully expanding the capacities of an industrial economy beyond the constraints of human labor.
Yes, absolutely.
And so that's where the software intelligence, though, is just hand in hand with that mechanical capability. And this is a phenomenal article. So I'm not going to fight you on an essential here for sure.
Yeah, I just the thing that blew my mind, and I'm going to go back and it's so long. I took a quick read through it, but I'm going to go back and really study it, because this is the dominant I mean, from this point of view, this is the dominant mega industry that affects all other industries. You know what I mean? And as you and I were talking about in the pregame here, we're talking about the Nullarbor plane in Australia, and you said, yeah, well, if we can desalinate cheaply, and we have robots, we can build the world's food basket in the middle of Australia. Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, how cool is that? And this cluster,
And the systems will be intelligent enough to
yeah,
maintain. Yeah.
yeah. And so, I mean, something like that, it's like, oh my goodness, that whole, the middle of Australia now becomes, more productive than the California Valley, whatever. Just, yeah, I mean, amazing opportunities. All right. Essential reading, a
Essential
long
it is.
one, but
Think so.
essential. Next, Ankash.
Okay, the next one comes from VentureBeat and talks about how Yelp reviewed competing LLMs for correctness, relevance, and tone to develop its user-friendly AI assistant.
Yeah, I was going to give this an optional. I didn't think this was well argued. It doesn't. The disappointing thing here is Yelp has tons of data. They get tons of experience. They don't share any of it, with us. They just say, hey, it was harder to get people to use the agents than we thought. Our new users. I mean, sorry, our power users loved it. The wide folks didn't. I just thought it was. I thought it was a fantastic opportunity fumbled. So optional.
Yeah, I was probably leaning towards optional. I think the only important might be because of the logo, because of how recognizable Yelp is, and I think how easy it is for people to understand the use cases that are described in terms of the ways they've used it.
Uh-huh.
But it was pretty light. I would be I would be okay with an optional on this one.
Yeah, just really. I mean, can you imagine all the stuff they
Well,
have?
yeah, the opportunity to tell this story is massive.
And they wouldn't be
They
disclosing
didn't do
any.
a very good job of it. Yeah.
No, there's no stats. There's no nothing. It doesn't. Anyway, I just think I was all psyched because I
The
mean, yeah.
robots would have done better optional news.
Alrighty, optional it is. Next.
Okay, the next one comes from Sebastian Rashka, and he talks about the state of LLM reasoning models.
Yeah, I love this guy. He just does such great work. Um, anyway, like our friends at Semi
Yeah,
Analysis.
I, I could go important, but potentially optional. But we've beat reasoning to death a little bit over the last few weeks and had a lot
Mhm.
of on the topic. But he does such a great job, and even just this one illustration here, right?
Yeah.
Like how quickly it portrays this entire landscape and gives you a sense of the breadth and scope of it, and then has that one little box and it's like this article. Like it's just brilliant. I mean, it's just brilliant the way he uses visualizations and just the full media to convey the ideas around inference time scaling within reasoning models, right? Which is just one specialization of foundation models in the, I mean, he just does a great job. So I think I could call it important and give people an opportunity to deepen their understanding from what it has to say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely important, maybe essential. Like I was thinking about there, I'm sending this to a couple of folks who are in production now to just make sure it's like, hey, I know you guys are worried about like our friends over at Quantum Gears. They're constantly worried about the trade off between quality and efficiency. Given their tight budgets on the inference that they do for their large customers. And I'm going to send this over to the folks over there and say, hey, just in case, have you guys seen all this different stuff and the way that he does the beautiful annotated bibliography, if you will, of the new articles in the domain and explains them out. Yeah, I guess important, but man, this is really nicely done. We should have a little quality metric about important and high quality. All right, important it is. Ankash, next.
Okay, the last one that we have for today is about Internet of Agents.
Yeah, on this thing, I was definitely going to give this an important, maybe an essential. I think that I think the whole open source community here and the creation of public good, like Ben Franklin did with the creation of the public library in the United States, I think that this is a huge issue. And here we have A number of important players coming together, Langchain, Galileo, Cisco, and really bring together the open source community on vital, infrastructure and standards around agents. And, I think it's a big deal. And I wish we had more people contributing to the public good around this. So for me, this is definitely important, maybe essential. What'd you think, Adam?
Yeah, at first I was like, oh, Cisco's playing catch up, and then as I started to understand a little more, there's no one who's really proposed this yet, which which makes it a pretty big deal. But really, like, how do you actually get AI builders and innovators to interoperate?
Right.
And sort of what's that next layer of abstraction in terms of frameworks? And they're working with Langchain and some other companies as well. And to their point, they're just the ones who are starting this. It's going to be an open source initiative. So it's good news. I'm not sure our AI leader needs to necessarily be across this news right now. I think we're going to continue to see this development. It's the beginning of something big. So I'd probably call it important.
Alrighty. Yeah, no, it's interesting because, I'm always suspect of Meta. I mean, if you look at, Mark Zuckerberg's history, right? The Meta is controlled by him, right? He's two classes of stock. So the shareholders don't control it. He does. And then, depending upon how you read history, I'm not sure he dealt with the Winklevoss brothers correctly when he started Facebook, right? He was basically contracted to build Facebook for them and then went off and did his own thing. And so I'm suspicious of his motives around putting the open models out there, and because they're not really open, right? They're free, they're not open, and free usually has a price associated with it sometime, especially when you're dealing with Facebook. So that as one of the big things, and then so who are the big what's the other big one? The Chinese. It's like, okay. Great. So our free model providers are the Chinese and Facebook in terms of the big models. So I think that the open source community, true open, needs to step up here and create a base for the citizenry of the world, right? To be able to go against these massively powerful organizations.
And I'm sure Cisco is happy to just be the hardware between the LLMs and the end user devices, right?
Sure.
Like that's their business, right? So it's smart of them to get into the business of making it easy for agents to basically interact on their networks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, in terms of who's going to control the value, I think the people close to the customer are going to continue to control the value. But we'll see. I don't know. It's quite a time. And thinking back to the semi-analysis thing. I guess that for me, the semi-analysis thing just cemented that this whole intelligence this intelligence robotic cluster, if you think of it that way, it's going to create it's going to have easily more market capitalization than the rest of all the economies combined. And that's when you sit back and think about that, and then it's going to be in everything. That's pretty powerful.
And what do we do with all that productivity?
Yeah, well, it was interesting. I'm here at the Sarah Week in Houston, and Lord Brown, Lord John Brown, the person who used to run BP, the company formerly known as British Petroleum, was talking about the importance of pricing externalities. And I think he's absolutely right. We have to price carbon. I think if we can price externalities, we'll absorb a lot of labor, because the solutions to I think that the decentralization of productive capacity is the only way you can really decrease externalities such as carbon and excessive water use and ground the erosion of ground topsoil around the world and so forth. So I think if we could figure out how to price water and carbon correctly, I think actually we'll use a lot of this intelligence to absorb labor locally. But that's it's just one man's opinion. But yes, if we don't do that, I think we shall see. All right, let's see. Lucinda saying it's a meta scorched earth policy. You wouldn't. Let's see. I can't. There we go. Until they are in the lead. Yes, I think Meta is a fairly aggressive competitor here, Lucinda.
And to
then
that
we
point,
have,
I've heard Mark Zuckerberg even say that thing. He's like, we've saved ourselves easily tens, if not hundreds
Sorry,
of
say
billions
again?
of dollars in development by having an entire community that's helping us build this stuff.
Yeah, I think I might be having problems with my internet connection here. Community works for free. Yes, inside their operations. Absolutely, Lucinda. All right. Anka, should we give the tote board here? That would be great.
Yep, coming right up.
All right. Let's see. Having a problem with my connection here, I think. I'll be right back. Let's see. Let's try this.
No, I can see the board, John. So we had the two essential articles, the OpenAI and about the robots, the two importance with the LLM reasoning and agency.org, Cisco's new open source initiative, and then the two optional. John, I don't know if you can hear me, but
I can now. I had to switch my connection.
I see you there twice. Anyway, thank you to all our listeners for contributing as always. Thanks, John. Thanks, Ankaj, as always, for sourcing such great articles and helping us steer the ship. And have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye, everybody.